So we ended last section on the Shah of Iran, the Pahlavi royalty, and Jimmy Carter loved him. He was a darling of the West, and again controversial within the Islamic world, loved by certain groups of Iranians and loathed by others. Ooh, and here's this intense picture, right? The other character that then we introduce is Ayatollah Khomeini. And Khomeini openly criticized the Shah. He was a Marja'i Taqlid, and in Shiite Islam, a Marja is some scholar of Islam. And this is only done in Shiite circles, okay? And remember, Iran is Shiite, while the majority of countries in the region are Sunni. I'm not sure if we've fully clarified those differences. Take a look on Google if you want to kind of get some more clarification right now. But a Marja, someone that you would want to emulate, writes legal decisions often. There's a very complex set of variables, but ultimately, if you follow this kind of person, then you listen to anything they say, and they are considered like the supreme knowledge of everything on the topic of what to do. You simply kind of like ask, what is your thought on X, Y, or Z? They give it, boom, and you listen. Now, he spent 15 years in exile, and while he was in exile, as a critic of what he saw happening in his home country, often studying in Iraq as well, because Iraq in the south that's the origins of Shiite Islam. He has a radical, I put a radical with new idea. Yeah, he's a radical. He has this concept of Waliyat-e-Faqih, rule by the Islamic scholar. Okay, a rule by the scholar. And it may have a heavy influence from Plato. It's basically the philosopher king. But what he essentially argues in this radical text that's not being paid attention to by a lot of even people within Iran is that if Islam is the most important thing in a person's life, and Islamic law then is actually the word of God, and the Islamic scholars know what gods want the most, then they should actually be the ones who rule the country. So imagine this, like in Christian Europe, there was a heavy influence by, let's say, the Pope and bishops and so forth. But the Pope didn't take power in France, for example, as the ruler, or Italy, where the country is ruled by bishops, like the entire nation. Okay. In Islam, you always had like the Sultan, the Shah, and then you had the Islamic courts next to royalty. You never had this concept of direct rule by Islamic clergy. Okay, so this was a radical idea, which is going to be something that he brings to fruition. Okay, so the Islamic Revolution of 1979, comes out of a lot of frustration with the Shah. For many people, not only is he not a true Muslim, he's opulent. He has this parade in which he spends, millions, if not billions of dollars. I know at least millions. So while like certain groups in Iran are doing well under him, for a lot of poor, he's just a decadent, westernized puppet, and they don't like him. And so there's many demonstrations against the Shah in 77, and it escalated by 78. It was not just the Ayatollah Khomeini. There was a lot of different groups that got together, even the Communist Party, the Tudeh Party. All these different groups would protest. The Shah eventually leaves the country, never to return. The Ayatollah Khomeini does return to Tehran, and he's able to really step up his influence. He's not a Fidel Castro, but you can put him in the like as one of those charismatic characters who comes in and really takes the bull by the horn. And these various groups in this coalition that were a part of this are going to eventually get liquidated or marginalized. But Iran becomes an Islamic Republic on April 1st, 1979. So, you went from having like women walking in the streets with mini skirts, forbidden to wear head coverings, westernized nation, pro-US, pro-Israel, to a revolution which is pro-Islam, anti-Israel, anti-US, women must be covered, and all of that. Okay? Now, from that, bear with me here, eventually escalates into the Iran-Iraq War from 80 to 1988. So remember, a revolution just happens in Iran. In Iraq, has a war with Iran. And its issues are over a waterway and some particular issues over Iraqi Shiites. But what's the end result of this war? So Iraq invades Iran. One, it helps the Islamic Republic in the middle of the war and chaos justify being repressing opposition. So the war actually helps consolidate the revolution instead of weakening the Islamic Revolution in Iran. Iran has an estimated 1 million casualties from this war, and Iraq estimates 250,000 to 500,000. USSR initially aids Iraq, but then US aided Iraq by 1984. Iran also got aid from the US. We actually funded both sides. Henry Kissinger, you remember him with Chile and Pinochet? He was a part of that too. But these were devastating wars on both sides. Young boys were brought in, really young, here in Iran. And sometimes they were sent in to step on mines and go to heaven. It was all a very grotesque war. And it was grotesque that the U.S. and other nations were willing to, fund it and participate in it on both sides. You remember also there was a country song right after 9/11 where the guy says something like, "And after watching the guys on CNN, I still don't know the difference between Iraq and Iran." Well, he needs to take the time to learn. Iran and Iraq has long antagonisms, and this was one of the worst. I'll end right here.